Roll call.
Jerem. Milton. Pauls. Thompson. Gurnett. Gray. Mr. President.
Here. Please stand for the pledge and invocation by Councilmember Ben Gray.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, surprise. I just wanted to, to take the opportunity to say that as we continue to do our work in this community, we have an obligation as council members and as a community to keep our community, Omaha, moving forward, doing the things to make us a first-class city, and my hope is that we will continue to operate in that vein. Thank you.
Amen to that. City Clerk certified publication of the Daily Record, the official newspaper, on March 28th. Notice for pre-council regular City Council meeting April 1st, 2014. A current copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted in white binder on the east wall of the legislative chambers.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Omaha City Council. This meeting is conducted in public and by law may only address the topics listed on the published agenda. The council will hear testimony but will not engage in debate of issues with the public at this meeting. During testimony, it's not appropriate to applaud or convey disapproval. These actions only detract from the formal decorum of the meeting. At this time, please turn off any electronic device.
Zoning ordinance on final reading and planning board attachments. We'll take items 5 through 8 as one case. 5 is ordinance to rezone property located at 2102 South 105th Street from R1 to R2 single-family residential district, low density. A, planning board and planning department recommend approval. 6 is the preliminary plat entitled Pullin Place is hereby authorized. A, planning board and planning department recommend approval. And 7 is the replat transmitted herewith entitled Pullin Place is hereby approved. A, planning board and planning department recommend approval. And 8 is the subdivision agreement is hereby approved. And we have a request from the applicant to lay over 1 week and continue the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Jerem. Yes. Milton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
It's laid over 1 week, 7-0. Pursuant to City Council Rule 70, agenda item number 9 shall be laid over 2 weeks for publication and public hearing. Liquor, Rhythms Lounge and Bistro, 10841 Q Street, Suite 114 to 117, 122 to 124. It's a Class C liquor license, new application, new location. It's over from 325.
Public hearing on number 10 is today. Proponents, Mr. Kelly.
Mr. President, members of the council, Mike Kelly, 7134 Pacific, appearing here with 2 of the applicants, Mr. and Mrs. Brown. They are planning on opening a Jamaican-style restaurant on 108th and Q area. This area has had some difficulties in the past. We know that. We're aware of that. The applicants here, I think, are uniquely qualified, though, especially when it comes to security. Of the 4 principal people involved, 2 are retired military and 2 are retired Omaha police. So I think we've got real good security. They have an excellent business plan. They've thought this out. It's been a lifelong dream of theirs. They will be serving food. They will have some entertainment, some dancing, but it's Jamaican style, which I consider, I could even handle that, I think. Most of you all could even handle that. So
Can we have a demonstration?
No, that won't be. That would kill this thing for sure. But we're here for any questions that you might have, and we will pledge to work with the neighborhood. And I think they're the perfect people to go in to a place that has had issues like that. And when it's done right, I've seen it work. So I think these people will do it. So we're here for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any other proponents today that want to speak? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you. To the owners, could you tell me more about the lounge side of it, not the bistro side, but the lounge side? What are some of your plans on a day-to-day basis? What would I see?
Gord Brown, 7306 North 154th Street. On a day-to-day basis, would be operating from about 9 to 1:30. It's more of a live venue, performance venue, more live bands, anything from jazz to R&B, but definitely on the live entertainment side.
Is it going to be heavy DJ music, or just sometimes DJ, or never DJ?
Sometimes DJ, but
Okay.
for the vast majority of the time it would be a live entertainment venue.
And would you say that your clientele will be the 18 to 28-year-olds? What do you think your clientele will look like?
Mrs. Thompson, I'm 50 years old. My wife is 52.
Okay. So I can.
You need to talk to me before you can vote.
So I can expect more Al Green than Lil Wayne, a.k.a. Wheezy.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Did you know that this guy here once, in order for him to get a deal in North Omaha, he had to quote-unquote dance with the fat lady? You didn't know that about him, did you?
I'm not going to touch that one.
Okay, well, it's not in my district, but I wish you luck, because there are people our age saying we like a new place to go to. And if that's what you're talking about, then, you know, my wife and friends would like to visit that place. So it sounds like a good deal, but I'll let the, you know, person from the district have the final say. Okay with it?
I think it's
Okay, then I move.
Rich's district.
Rich, oh.
Just to let you know. But I'm good. I would like to come. I won't dance.
Sorry.
All right. Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for your service on the Omaha Police Department, and also continuing to invest in our city. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
you.
People don't recognize you all the time without the uniform, but I recognize you all the time. So I just wanted to thank you for your service, and thank you all, thank both of you for continuing to invest in the city.
Thank you.
Mr. Pauls.
Thank you, Mr. President. I spent approximately an hour with the four individuals, and because I did have some concerns because of the past history. And I looked at their business plan, and if most associations would have a business plan as well written as theirs, they would succeed. And again, I wish you the best.
Thank you.
Motion approved. Second.
Roll call.
Jerem? Milton? Pauls?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett? Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Jerem passes the second time for potential conflict of interest. It's approved 601 passing. Item number 11, Benson Brewery, 6059 Maple Street, request permission for an addition to their present Class C, L brew pub and catering liquor license location of a storage shed approximately 18 by 17 to the south to be located behind 6057 Maple Street. A's communications from P&I and communications of the brewery.
Public hearing on number 11 is today. Proponents, Mr. Kelly.
Mr. President, members of the council, again, Mike Kelly, 7134 Pacific, appearing here for Omaha Brewery. As was discussed in the pre-meeting, this is just a shed. There was some confusion in the early going about what the use was going to be, and so building inspectors were denying it because they wouldn't have a CO. But they don't need one because it's only going to be used for that purpose. So with that understanding, I'd ask for your approval.
Thank you. And having been there too, I concur with that analysis and think that's all it is, and would be supportive of this today as well. Any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Motion approved.
Roll call.
Jerem? Milton? Pauls?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett? Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Jerem passes the second time for potential conflict of interest. It's approved 601 passing. Item number 12, Rojas Mexican Grill and Margarita Bar, 17010 Wright Plaza, request permission for a special designated license for a beer garden on May 5th from 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. with music ending at 1 a.m.
Public hearing on number 12 is today. Proponents, please.
Chris Dalton with Roja Mexican Grill, 17010 Wright Plaza, Omaha, Nebraska, 68130. Basically, we're just asking for permission for the special designated license, have a beer garden on May 5th of this coming year.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Pauls.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chris, the one reason why I wanted you to come forth and talk to us a little bit, at one time I lived at the property on 168th and Center, which is Leawood Southwest and Western Trails. It's not really not that far from your location. And on the other side, you do have apartments. My only concern is the noise level, because I know a lot of those people out there. And I have to be honest with you, having lived in that area, I could hear late in the evening, which you are wanting to go to 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, I could hear the train a mile and a half away. So I'm just indicating to you that the noise level is a concern of mine, and I'd like to have you respond to that.
We're definitely considerate of the community around us. So if it was an issue, I know we've done this in the past, and I'm kind of new to the management team and kind of organizing this, but I have been with them for about 9.5 years. And to my knowledge, we haven't had any complaints. So I guess we've done this in the past and it's worked, so we feel like it could, work again. But if there was an issue or it was brought to our attention, we definitely address it and do what we need to make the situation right.
Well, I do thank you for coming down.
Mm-hmm.
I move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Jerem. Milton.
Yes.
Pauls. Thompson. Gurnett. Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Approved 7-0.
Thank you.
Item number 13. 13 and 14 go together. They're both the same applicant for two licenses. DJ's Dugout at 17666 Welch Plaza, Class C liquor license application, new location, and 14 is the same applicant for a catering license at the same location.
Public hearing on items number 13 and 14 are today. Proponents, please.
Greg Pivovar, 2312 Cornhusker, appearing for Maxie May, doing business as DJ's Dugout. This is an application for their fifth location, which is on 176th and Welch Plaza in southwest Omaha. They currently operate 4 licenses within the city of Omaha, and we're here to answer any questions in that regard.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents today that want to speak? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Mr. Pauls.
Thank you, Mr. President. A while back, I did have some individuals come to me because they were concerned about the traffic going into their neighborhood, so I drove out there. You'd have to really want to go into the neighborhood and I assured them, but just to let you know, that was a concern, but I don't know why anybody would go in that unless they live there. And some of the people told me who live in that neighborhood, they love it that you're coming out there. So it's
You voiced that concern last time
Right.
you were here when we were trying, when we had manager approval
Right.
on the 114th location. And I asked Darwin Hanson, who is the owner, to look into that, and I don't think it's going to be an issue either.
no, okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion approved.
Second.
Roll call.
Jerem. Milton.
Yes.
Pauls. Thompson. Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
They're both adopted. It's 7-0. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 15, Vinton Street Tobacco at 1602 Vinton Street, package liquor license, new application, old location.
Public hearing on number 15 is today. Are there any proponents?
Michael Polk, 2712 South 87th Avenue, here on behalf of California Union to answer any questions with Mr. Shumet Abebe, who's the owner of the business.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Mr. Gurnett.
Thank you, Mr. President. To the new owner, you have any plans for the large radio tower that's in behind your building? Is that going to stay, or you going to put Christmas lights on it or something?
It's been excluded from the lease, so it's up to the landlord.
Okay.
So I guess to answer your question, no, he doesn't have any plans for it.
Well, welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you so much.
I wish you the best.
Thank you.
It's an active corner up there.
It is.
And participating with the local neighborhood association is encouraged, and being a good neighbor. From what I've seen so far on the application and the research that I've done, you should do well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Motion approved.
Roll call.
Jerem.
Yes.
Milton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Adopted 7-0. Item number 16, the Come and Go number 348 at 12011 Blondo Street request permission, or is requesting a catering license, and that we have a communication from the applicant requesting a 1-week layover and a continuation of the public hearing.
Motion to lay over one. Go ahead.
Lay it over.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Jerem.
Yes.
Milton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Laid over 1 week, 7-0. Item number 17, Pelletiers, Restaurant San Luis, 4802, 4804 South 24th Street. Request permission for a special designated license for a dance reception at the Milliman Hall, 2226 N Street on April 12, 2014, from 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. And 18 is the same applicant for April 19th, from 5 to 2.
Public hearing on items number 17 and 18 are today. Before we start the public hearing, we've had a request from Mr. Mumgar to give a brief history of the site here. We had a short conversation at pre-council today that I think he just wants to clarify.
Tom Mumgar, Deputy City Attorney. I just need to clarify something I told you this morning at the pre-council. You were informed that this location had a visit by police a few weeks back, and some tickets were issued. At that point, I was thinking that the licensee who's applying for this SDL had been involved in that incident. We find that no, this licensee had not been involved in that incident. In fact, no licensee had been involved, and no license of any sort was there. The property owner was the person ticketed at the prior, at the event that got tickets, and it's still the same property owner. So I just wanted to clarify that, and you will hear from some opponents as to what happened on that prior incident. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll begin public hearing now. Proponents, please.
Thank you. Greg Thomas, 661 North 50th Street, here on behalf of Mr. Palomares and not the owner, but actually the person who has the lease on the property, Mr. Jose Aguilar, Millennium Hall. I sent an email to Mr. Gurnett today, and it kind of laid out the position of Mr. Aguilar and Mr. Palomares. I don't want to waste your time going through that again. It's fairly lengthy. If you've seen it, if you haven't, I can go through it again. There was an incident on March 8th. I will tell you this is a family-owned hall. Mr. Aguilar has been involved with it for 3 years to about 2 years as the lessee, and he's had 20 to 30 events there without a problem. On this particular night, there was a problem. Someone got caught with drugs in the restroom. The police were called. There was no license for liquor. They were under the impression, pursuant to their interpretation of a pamphlet from the Liquor Control Commission, that if it was a private event, beer could be given away. And their interpretation may have some viability, it may not have some viability, but they now realize that their approach to it was not appropriate. When the police got there, because of the drug violation, they saw liquor and arrested Alejandra Aguilar, the 20-year-old daughter who was acting as a manager that particular night. It's been an embarrassment, not only from a business standpoint, but personally. He didn't want his daughter to go to jail that night. But he has learned the lesson. Part of it is that a security officer was doing his job and saw someone doing drugs, and the police were called. They were doing what they were supposed to do. There's 10 security officers at each one of these events, or at least the one on the night in question. I got to tell you, I don't know the ones coming up. I suspect it's going to be a like number, but I don't know for sure. I didn't ask. All I know is that there were 10 there that night, including an off-duty officer. There was one security guard who said he saw alcohol being sold. Alcohol was brought in. It was to be given away under the theory that at a private party where they didn't sell the tickets to the place, it was through the merchants in the area. They viewed that as a private party, and alcohol can be served at a private party. if you're not selling tickets. There are, according to the pamphlet, there are things you should have an idea, a list or something of who is coming in. They viewed because tickets were being sold by various people that complied with the requirement. They would have had a liquor license, but as I think Mr. Mumgard made reference, there was no license because there was a prior request to get a license, but the wrong date was put in. So there was no license on this particular date. I'm more than willing to respond to any questions about that night or any of the other 20 to 30 events where there were no issues. This is a family-owned business. It does provide a social good to the community. It's not only used for dances, but it's used for weddings, it's used for christenings, it's used for any number of charitable and family functions. And to be honest with you, if they can't have dances and sell liquor, it will not exist. They can't make a profit. You don't make a profit on baptism parties. I'm more than willing to respond to any questions. Mr. Aguilar is more than willing to do whatever is necessary to make sure this doesn't happen again. And it all stemmed from the fact that they didn't have a license, and they thought that since these tickets were not sold by them, were sold by merchants in the area, that this complied with this private party type of approach.
Okay.
Mr. Aguilar, Mr. Palomares, and Mr. Aguilar's family are all here. They would be here. They would answer your questions, but there's a language issue.
Thank you. I think we'll have some follow-up questions for you, but for now I'll ask for any other proponents that want to speak. Seeing none, any opponents? Captain Belcastro.
Hi, Captain Kathy Belcastro Gonzalez, 505 South 15th Street, Omaha Police Department. I just wanted to testify on the event that was spoken about. It was the 7th of March. We had received information. There was a flyer that was being passed around on Facebook, and so the Vice Unit had forwarded this information to us. So we had one of our light duty officers make contact with Ms. Aguilar on the phone on Friday the 7th of March, and I believe that she came to the actual police precinct to talk with them. At that time, she had mentioned that she, in fact, did have a private party that was going on and that she had all the proper paperwork that would go through. On this flyer, and if you want me to hand it up, I can, it says that there's tickets that will be pre-sold at $35 and the regular price is $40.
Twist it so that it's, there you go.
Okay. So that night I asked the Vice Unit to also make contact with the business to see, in fact, what was going on. At that time, I had notification that, in fact, there was an event going on, but because of staffing, we weren't sure that we could actually shut the event down. Later that night, Sergeant Deck was working the midnight crew. They had actually received 2 separate radio calls to the location from the off-duty officer that was working there. They made a total of 3 arrests for cocaine possession that night. At that time, they noticed that there were probably between 600 and 800 people that were at the location, that there was, in fact, alcohol, and they were advised by the security guard upstairs that they were also selling alcohol. And in the email that I received, he said, I observed people fighting inside and outside the building. People were passed out due to intoxication. A squad was called to check on an unconscious party, and he was treated and released. At that time, he had informed Ms. Aguilar to shut down the party, and in fact, she refused. Ultimately, she was arrested and booked into jail. More cruisers were called to assist for clearing the crowd. It took them nearly an hour to actually shut the venue down. So our problem, I guess, or my problem would be the fact that Ms. Aguilar did, in fact, know that they did not have the proper paperwork. And after that night, I received an email from City Council that had stated, from Carmen, I believe, stating that, in fact, she was aware of the fact she did not have the proper paperwork, that they had been working on the location for nearly a year trying to get the exact credentials that they needed to file for the SDL and for the liquor license. So one of my issues would be is if they continue to have events knowing that they don't have the proper paperwork, that we'll continue to see problems up there. Any questions?
Thank you. Might have some. Any other opponents want to speak today? Seeing none, we'll have a quick, maybe 2 minutes for rebuttal, and I'm sure we'll have some questions too.
the issue with the proper paperwork is an issue. Greg Thomas here on behalf of Mr. Aguilar and Mr. Palomares. That's what we're here to do, get the proper paperwork so it never happens again. We tried to go through the process before. I was told that that the wrong date was put down. Now, Alejandra Aguilar, the daughter, did say that, I think, I can't remember exactly what Captain Belcastro said, but that she knew that there wasn't the proper paperwork. That's why they say, they maintain, and I've asked 2 or 3 times, they did not sell liquor there that night. Now, I know that there's one security guard, not the off-duty police officer, but one security guard out of the 10 said he saw something being sold, some liquor being sold. I don't know what to make about that, but I do know that I have been told that the owners of the hall, or actually lessees of the hall, did not sell any alcohol. And I don't know where that'll end up, but that's their position. And 600 to 800, I will tell you, you can. The estimate I got from the owner was, or not owner, but actually lessee, was a couple hundred. I suppose there can be some room for error on either side in the estimate. In terms of the alcohol and people drunk, it's not good. And my clients have told me they're certainly trying to watch that. That's why they hire so many security guards. I suspect it's not unusual. The drugs in the bathroom, not good. They don't want it. But once again, I suspect, and they try and prevent it. That's why they have the officers. But I suspect it's something that you see in a lot of venues. I don't know that should disqualify them from future licenses, or the people that want to use the hall to get future licenses. The issue with the alcohol, they're not happy about. They had a misunderstanding. They believed it was a good faith understanding as to what they could do. It had never been a problem the 20 to 30 times before. I know if there was a history or a pattern of violence or difficulty, we would have heard about it. Captain Belcastro's thorough. If there was more information she thought that the council should have on this issue, it would have been presented.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and close public hearing. Mr. Gernand.
Thank you, Mr. President. Captain, would you come back up? You just have to restate the name for the record, that's all.
Captain Kathy Belcastro Gonzalez.
Captain, several times it's been stated that there have been about 20 to 30 events there since the lessee has taken over this property. Do you have any other knowledge of police responses or any timelines that have been made applicable that you can talk about to that N Street address so we can develop a more intense history here?
I don't have the actual 911 calls to that location. When I check my emails, the last big event that happened in 2012, it would have been December, from anything that was noteworthy as far as that goes into my files. But otherwise, no. And this was actually brought to us by the vice unit, so thus, in fact, the reason that we did some checking on it to make sure that everything was in order. So other than anything coming to light, no.
Okay. And from the knowledge that you have based upon your investigation, the emails that you received, that there was a significant police response on that night. Is that would be an accurate phrase?
Right. The sergeant had to call in several other officers to, in fact, clear the location. Yes, because of the number of people that were there.
All right. That's it for now. Stay close. I may have to call you back. Mr. Thomas?
I would.
Just don't get in a bundle here.
Yeah, Greg Thomas here on behalf of Mr. Palomares and Millennium Hall. I did want to respond to one other comment, and Captain Belcastro's been very helpful in telling me what the police concern was, and I did get to see some reports. One of the problems was the length of time it took to close this down. I'll admit that Alejandra, when she was told to close it down, she wanted it closed down as soon as possible, but there were several hundred people, and she thought, I just can't start yelling, everyone leave, everyone leave, everyone leave. She thought the prudent approach was get it done, but if you have to stretch it out a little, stretch it out. I would point out that the police officer arrived at 1:09 and left with Alejandra at 1:50, and it was closed down by the time that they left. My assumption is it was closed down by the time she left because the report doesn't say the venue was closed down when we left, but I would have thought that they would not have left with Alejandra to go to jail unless it was closed down. So there was some time, and although the police responded appropriately, I sometimes think that when they say everyone out, that not everyone quite moves as fast as they like. And I don't know, that's not necessarily right, but it may be a reality. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
You also representing the applicants here today?
Yes.
All right. And I know that's why we're here today, but I felt it significant enough to let my colleagues know that there has been some problem at this location before since the new Lucy. And here's the question I have for you on the reason why I called you back down here. You keep referring to the leasee. Who's the owner of the property?
The owner of the property is a Dr. Kadar who resides in Virginia. Well, actually, it's a partnership between Dr. Kadar and Dr. Amer, who resides in Florida, and Dr. Kadar resides in Virginia. And I think, if I remember right, Dr. Kadar was in the process of trying to foreclose on the property because he lent the money to the partnership to buy the property, and the partnership has not paid him personally back as the trustee, as having the deed of trust on the property, so he's foreclosing on his deed of trust, last I heard. And I will tell you that there's litigation on the lease and things like that, which I don't believe has bearing on this particular incident, but that's pending in Judge Coffey's court.
All right. Is Palomares is here?
Yes, Mr. Palomares.
Yeah. Come on down. Jose, right?
Yes.
Just state your name and your address for the record, please.
My name is Jose Palomares, and 4804 South 24.
You run a fairly successful business up on 24th Street.
Yeah, I got a store and a restaurant right now.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Been to both, and curious, great reputation, good business representative, participate in, with the other merchants along South 24th Street.
Yeah, I try to do.
Why do you want to get involved in a troubled site? I'm really curious. It just
okay. See, I really, I want to help these guys as my friends, and he got a lot of trouble with that building, so he don't got a liquor license. So he asked me for a favor, can get some permits to get it.
Mr. Aguilar did?
Yes.
Okay.
So in that day, I don't get a permit for that day, so I don't participate in that day, and but if we can, we try to help more because he's only, he don't got a liquor license, he don't got any type of business over there, so he's got like weddings, quinceañeras, any kind of parties.
Well, I admire you trying to help him.
Yeah, and see, I do the best I can, and I don't like it because it involves me too. So, and that's what I tell him, real be careful on that one because the liquor license is too hard to get it, and they get a lot of trouble.
And just so the record is clear, you had no part in this December incident
yes.
that we were talking about earlier. That was somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's see. Have you ever, it was mentioned in earlier testimony that the leasee has had 20 to 30 events at that building with no problem. Have you participated in an informal or formal capacity in any of those events?
No.
None at all?
Not at all.
Okay. And I know that's why we're here today, for their application. And I think it's important that my colleagues know that the former owner of that building never had a problem, and they were in there for a good number of years. And since the new owners and the subleases and the subleases that are going on, the control and the atmosphere has, if we were looking at a graph, it would be going down. And I worry about your successful business becoming a partner in this, and I also am very concerned about the amount of law enforcement resources that have to go in and investigate and then effect arrests because of noted violations, whether it's from a security guard or a law enforcement officer. To me, there's enough there to justify what happened that night. And just that one incident, and Jose, you, in what you have done with both your businesses on 24th Street, I'm very concerned. You're stepping into a hornet's nest. Yeah. And that bothers me a lot.
Councilman, I'd like to address some of your issues about what you, I think, referred to the general tenor of how the business has been going the last couple of years. I would suggest to you that Mr. Aguilar has put over $60,000 in a down payment to lease the business, plus a monthly amount, and has put in $25,000 to $30,000 in repair work. It's not an insignificant commitment for a gentleman like him that his family and himself has made. And they are committed to making it go, and they are committed to it being a positive attribute for the community. I don't know, or what I'm led to believe is, other than this one incident, there has not been a significant issue. And certainly they view it as an aberration. I view it as an aberration. I would hope that you would view it as an aberration and not part of a pattern of conduct.
I'm just not convinced that we've reached a point where the leasee realizes the need for maybe more hands-on type, other than, and no disrespect to the daughter in that management style, but more hands-on in the actual day-to-day operation of this facility. I'm just not convinced that we're at that point. I would love to see that happen. I'm not there yet. I'm sorry.
She appeared before the police because she speaks English. Mm-hmm. And there would be a language barrier. Mr. Aguilar could come down right now, but he can't talk to you in English. And our interpreter is not here. She was here earlier. She's not now. Mm-hmm. Oh, there she is, Adriana. If you want to ask him questions, the interpreter's here and would be happy to interpret his responses.
I do have one question.
For Mr. Aguilar?
I can bring it all into one question.
Sure.
Mr. Aguilar, and there's a... If you would have him state his name and address for the
Diga su
record.
nombre y su dirección para el acta, por favor.
Mi nombre es José Aguilar,
My name is José Aguilar.
719 Sur 25 Avenida.
719 South 25th Avenue.
Mr. Aguilar, you have heard of, and I hope that you've been able to understand the concern about the property that you lease out for these events. There's serious concerns about the events that go on there that have brought the attention of the police more focusing on that address.
Sí.
Can you share with us on how you can at least ease my concern on the amount of resources that we're putting in the building that you lease? And maybe you're not directly involved with the actual operation of the events, but what can you do to convince at least me on the city council that we should allow Mr. and Mrs. Palermo's the opportunity to help you and continue having responsible events at that building on N Street?
Tener más cuidado en la seguridad.
We will be more careful with the security.
Más organización.
And organize better.
Yo, por tratar de hacer las cosas bien, hago las cosas tanto en la seguridad.
I'm trying to do things the right way, and I'm doing things like with the security guards.
Y eso es lo que yo quiero prestar hacia la comunidad, hacia ustedes, la seguridad de hacer los eventos ahí.
And that's what I want. I want to have that safety and security for the community so we can have those events there.
Nunca he tenido ningún problema.
I've never had a problem before.
Tengo 2 años ahí.
I've been there for 2 years.
Nunca había llegado la policía, nunca.
And the police had never been called there, never.
No peleas afuera.
There were no fights outside.
Desgraciadamente, ahorita hubo unas personas que se drogaron y esa fue la razón por la que llegó la policía.
Unfortunately, this time there were some people using drugs, and that's why we called the police.
Eso yo no lo puedo evitar. Yo evito nada más no armas, no cuchillos.
I wasn't able to avoid that, but we try to avoid and make sure there is no weapons, no knives.
Pero nunca he tenido ningún problema ahí. En los 2 años que tengo ahí, nunca he tenido un problema.
But during the last 2 years that I've been there, I've never had any problems there.
Thank you both very much. Captain?
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Captain Kelly Belcastro Gonzalez.
I don't want this to sound as an unfair question of putting you on the spot, but having in my other life experience in dealing with on a local level responding to radio calls and having been involved in trying to solve similar things, you, with this particular instance, is it your take or sense that the strong possibility of a reoccurrence is there? Or I guess you wouldn't come in opposition if you didn't think so. But
I think the concern that I have is that when we found out about the event, we reached out to the business owners and those that were involved, trying to let them know that they didn't have the proper permits, or to find out if they did in fact have the proper permits. And originally the light duty officer was told they did. Vice was sent to the location, so it was something that we found out about, that we tried to go to make sure that everything was in order, and in fact it wasn't in order. So if this business has been running for the last 2 years, we never had any red flags. I mean, that would be fair to say, or at least I didn't. If the other officers made the calls there, it was nothing that was brought to my attention. So the concern would be if they continue to operate illegally, there's a concern because it's a violation of the law.
Okay. Thank you, Captain. Mr. Palermo? Just repeat your name.
My name is Jose Palomares in 4804 South 24.
Jose, I don't want to be redundant, but with what you have heard today, I sense that your attentiveness and your presence here, that you still would like to proceed in the 2 applications that you have for April the 12th and April the 19th for events.
Yeah, and
the address. Is that correct?
Yes, and I'm sorry. See, and I know about the incident. I know we almost yesterday about it, so we don't know. We don't know about the incidents happened that day. So to yesterday, he told me can come here to the court to But see, in that day I don't. But my honest on that day, and I don't know what happened in that day because I not be there, and we don't know. We have incidents too. When he told me about they come in these events, he got a wedding by 19 and private dancing in 12. So he can tell me, can help me. We can do it, but we don't know about. We had the incident before, so two years today. So.
Well, I'm sure that we could go on and on and on, but I'm not going to put my colleagues through that. Thank you, Jose, for your testimony today. Mr. President, I'll yield the floor time.
Thank you, Mr. Gerald.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Palomares.
Oh, sorry. I'm Mr. Palomares in 4804 South 24.
You'll have to forgive me, but I'm not familiar with what businesses do you currently
we own San Luis Restaurant.
What was the name?
San Luis Restaurant in the 4804 South 24. And also we got a carniceria, Paulito, is like a grocery store, and 5116 South 24.
Okay. Have you had any violations at either of those two premises?
We got in September for a minor.
And did you pay the fine or?
Yes.
Did you close? Okay. Thank you. Captain?
Captain Kathy Balcaster Gonzalez.
Do you have any concerns about Mr. Palomares and his abilities?
No.
Do you have any thoughts you care to share about the interplay with him becoming involved as to whether you have a better sense of comfort with this? Or
honestly, we've never had an issue with him. As far as I know, everything has been fine with both of his locations on 24th Street. So, no.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Thomas?
Greg Thomas, 661 North 50th Street.
Has your client, Mr. Aguilar, applied for a permanent liquor license?
No, and part of the reason is the lease has...
you need 12 months lease period to show, and you
can't
do that?
It's more than that. There's a clause in the lease that says liquor shall be sold by another entity, and that's part of the litigation in Judge Coffey's court at this point. And it would be an aggressive position to try to ignore that clause and say that we can get a liquor license.
Does Mr. Palomares have a catering license?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Grave.
Thank you, Mr. President. For either the captain or my colleague, Mr. Gurnett, or do either of you have concerns with the 2 o'clock, having music until 2 o'clock in the morning?
Sorry, Captain Belcastro Gonzalez. No, it's there's a neighborhood that surrounds it, but we've never had any issues in the past of anything that's been brought up to, as far as complaints with the music. If the weather gets nice and they open the doors, obviously, but that's always something we proactively try to let them know, and hopefully they'd be a good neighbor.
Mr. Gray, in response to that, I would say the neighbors to the east and to the south would probably be the concern that I would have. To the north and to the west, pretty much commercial and light industry. So I would have the same response as the captain.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. No further lights. Mr. Gurnett.
Based upon what I have said, I'm still at the same position. I would make a motion to deny.
There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Jerem.
Yes.
Milton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
The 2 SDLs are denied on a 7-0 vote. Item number 19, resolution that Big Red is granted approval to operate a satellite Keno location at 14334 U Street, Bogies Bar and Grill West.
Public hearing on number 19 is today. Proponents, please. Ms. Coffey.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the council, my name's Katrina Coffey. I'm Vice President of Marketing for Big Red Keno. We're located at 11248 John Galt Boulevard. I have with me today the owner's daughter, Ashley Song, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Motion approved.
Second.
Roll call.
Jerem. Milton. Pauls. Thompson. Gurnett. Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
It's adopted 7-0.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. Any member of the City Council may cause an item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed consent agenda shall be taken up by City Council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed unless otherwise provided by City Council rules of order.
The public hearings on agenda items number 21 through 21 were held on March 25th.
Motion approved. Second.
Mr. Jerem.
Hold on.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that for the neighbors of mine who have reached out to me and people in the neighborhood surrounding mine to let me know how they've weighed in on this. I've heard both sides of this one. It is kind of a tough issue for people who live in neighborhoods with parking limited to one side of the street. And I'm counting on, in Canada they have a saying, Canada nice, and I'm hoping that we have Morton Meadows nice, as well as Exarban, Elmwood Park neighborhood nice, and Field Club neighborhood nice, and the surrounding neighborhoods nice, because this is intended to give relief to people who find their driveways blocked or so constricted that they can't get in and out of it. And I've weighed it pretty heavily, and I'm going to come down and voting for this today because of the people who, everyone from a senior like Mrs. Tracy over at 53rd and Harney to the neighbors around the high schools that have a lot of teen drivers that are discourteous, have problems getting in and out, and they have problems getting compliance, leaving the friendly notes on the windshield. So this just gives a tool in the toolbox. Hopefully it won't create problems, and if it does, I suppose we can always revisit it. But I've heard from far more people, I guess, that would like to try this than those who have not. So that's where I stand on this. I see one of my constituents down here standing in front of the podium. I guess that means Deshaun wants to say something. You missed the public hearing, or maybe you didn't, but is there something you want to say really briefly?
Briefly. Deshaun Cunningham, 604 South 22nd Street. I am specifically curious about Agenda Item 21. You said you've heard a lot of negative feedback, and especially in our district in the Midtown area. If this goes into effect, absolutely no one will be able to park on my street. We already have enough problems with parking as it is, with fire hydrants being in the way of driveways. We have problems with small tenant lots not being able to find adequate parking, and I have a major problem with this because, one, it seems incredibly impunitive that people that have been able to have free parking, especially in the Midtown areas, are now going to be forced to pay for parking in some of the big garages. Not only that, this is going to... I had my own car towed because a neighbor considered it too close to a fire hydrant, and I didn't have the $1,000 to get my car back once it was towed. So this may seem benign, but this directly affects many just average people around the city that are coming home from work and will now not have a place to have their car. They're going to have to pay to have a private parking spot, or they are going to have to risk it becoming a police matter. And as we saw last year with the OPD, we can have a disaster happen from a parking incident. So I was not aware that the hearing on this was last week. I was out of town, but regardless, this needs to be voted no on. And I feel so strongly about this that I'm not going to leave the podium until there is a no vote. So if I have to be physically removed, then that's what's going to happen. But this is not going to pass today as long as I am here, and you guys should take that into account.
Well, I'd like to thank you for coming, Mr. Cunningham, and of course you can choose to do what you wish, but the public hearing was last week, and I think in allowing you to share your views on that here today, the council was being respectful to give you that opportunity. If the bailiff does ask, or the sheriff asks you to sit and you choose not to, that's up to you, but there will be a vote today, and we'll see how it goes.
All right, well, let's vote then.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, I bring this proposal for your approval based upon not only personal experience for the last 4.5 decades, but doing research the last 7 to 8 years where I had mentioned before, and I won't go over all the fine points of this that were stated in the public hearing. They're already on the record. But I bring this forward today for a sharpening of a tool that is already in the toolkit. And it takes away where our law enforcement had the unpleasant experience of telling complainants of such a situation that there was nothing that they could do. But I want to assure the public that, one, this does not create a tactical unit that law enforcement will be out looking for these types of complaints. It will not create the hardships in the neighborhood that have been so afforded through testimony. It will be handled like any other parking infraction that comes into the system. There's a priority placed on it, and the appropriate response is taken. And that might even be to the point where there may never be a law enforcement response to it, because there may not be resources there to do it, there might not be any further complaints, or it is cleared up on its own. The reassurance even goes to the second step is that we're not creating a neighborhood full of snitches, where going to tattletale on another person. The research shows the exact opposite. And let's give our neighbors and our law enforcement credit for the common sense that used. If there is a violation, our law enforcement people attempt to get that violation corrected as best that they possibly can without using that tool of a citation or the towing, which is also an option. So this, again, is just sharpening of a tool that's already in the toolkit, and it's there. It's not going to create a situation where people are going to be forced to do very expensive alternatives. So we have a motion and a second? We do.
Not yet. Do we?
So
Yes.
with that, would call for a vote.
We have one more light, if that's okay. Ms. Milton.
Thank you. And I just wanted to make sure, Mr. Kratz, are we going to make sure we have something in there for the purpose of that, to make it clear that the legislative intent of the council today, we discussed it last week, and I know we discussed it a little bit at the 10:30 meeting, that in the cover letter, we're going to make sure that it clearly states that the legislative intent today was to help people have a tool to remove cars that are too close to their own driveway. So if I'm parking within 3 feet of my own driveway or even blocking my own driveway, my neighbor can't call the police on my car necessarily.
Paul Kratz, City Attorney. We looked at the cover letter. It's rather thin as far as explanation. Now, we do have a lot of legislative history that's been stated here and at the last meeting, which can always be used if somebody wants to challenge it at some point in time.
Okay, so I just want to be clear that this is, and I think Councilman Gurnant was clear that it was complaint-based. And that's why I just wanted to make that clear for the record today. So I have nothing further.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Jerem? Yes. Milton? Yes. Pauls? Yes. Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
20 and 21 are passed 7-0. We're removing item 34 from the consent agenda.
The public hearings on agenda items number 22 through 33 are today. If you wish to address the City Council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item you wish to address, identify yourself by name, address, who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent. Seeing none, public hearings are closed.
Motion approved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Jerem? Milton?
Yes.
Pauls?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Items 22 to 33 are adopted 7-0. Item number 34 is resolution that the appointment by the mayor of Diane Durham to be a member of the MECA Board of Directors is hereby confirmed. We have a request for a 1-week layover and a continued public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Jerem?
Yes.
Milton?
Yes.
Pauls? Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
It's laid over 1 week, 7-0. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7F, agenda items number 35 to 36 shall be laid over 3 weeks for publication and public hearing. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7D, the public hearing on agenda items number 37 through 43 shall be held on the third reading. Ordinance on second reading, item number 44, ordinance to accept the bid from Tree Barn for ground maintenance at the Papillion Creek wastewater treatment plant.
Public hearing on number 44 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item number 45, ordinance to accept the bid from Dana Enterprises Incorporated for seasonal rubbish container services for park maintenance during the 2014 park season.
Public hearing on number 45 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item number 46, ordinance to accept the bid from Deffenbaugh Industries for portable chemical restroom services for the park maintenance during the 2014 park season.
Public hearing on number 46 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item number 47, ordinance approving a bid from ABM Janitorial Services for janitorial cleaning services at 6 Omaha Public Library facilities. And we have communications from BMI Janitorial Group.
Public hearing on number 47 is today. Are there any proponents? If you can you come down, or if you can't, we'll ask it to be cleared.
Yeah, we can use the other microphone.
Yeah.
There's another microphone.
Over here.
Regina Dale, Omaha Public Library.
Yeah, Ms. Liddell, before you start, I think we shouldn't make you speak from that. I think that's pretty discourteous. I think you should be able to take the podium, and so we request that Mr. Cunningham respectfully leave the chamber, as we respectfully allowed you to voice your opinion today. But it's your choice, and if not, we'll clear the podium.
Don't. I'm going to have to officially make us an arrest you. What do you tell me? I'm going to go with no action. You sure you want to do that? But you know I have to arrest you. We're going to have to fight with you, wrestle with you. You're going to stand up for us.
I'm not going to fight, but I'm not going to go with him.
You have a lot of respect for him, I know.
So I have a lot of respect for you. There's no flip on this because I know this. Seriously, for a long time, make a statement. Okay, you're a smart guy. You're better than us. You deserve better than us. So I appreciate it. You're cooperating.
I will get out. I still plan to make it. But I won't take it.
I'm going to have one of these companies put your hands up if that's what you do.
Thank you, Ms. Odell. Please go ahead and continue with your testimony.
Regina Dale, Omaha Public Library, 215 South 15th Street. Here to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item number 48, ordinance approving a bid from exclusive janitorial and final cleaning services for janitorial services at 4 Omaha Public Library facilities.
Public hearing on number 48 is today. Are there any proponents?
Again, Regina Dale, Omaha Public Library. Here to answer any questions if you have.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item number 49, ordinance to approve an agreement between the city and Boys and Girls Clubs of the Midwest for the employment of a South Omaha gang specialist position in order to further the goals and objectives of the Omaha Gang Violence Prevention Strategy Phase 3.
Public hearing on number 49 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item number 50, special ordinance levying a special tax and assessment for the construction of sidewalks in SWR 2013-03.
Public hearing on number 50 is today. Are there any proponents? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Reports, item number 51, the Housing Authority of the City of Omaha 2013 Annual Report.
Motion to receive and place on file.
Roll call.
Jerem?
Yes.
Milton?
Yes.
Pauls? Gurnett? Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
And 52 is the 2013 City Charter Convention Report.
Motion to receive and place on file.
Yes.
And before we take a roll call, we'll ask Mr. Pauls, as chairman of the Law Committee, to say a few words. And if he wants to recognize folks at the podium, he may do that.
Since we already have some individuals at the podium, let's...
Is that Mr. Brinker Harding?
Oh, thanks, Mr. Pauls. Good afternoon. I'm Brinker Harding, 6464 Center Street. And council members, I'm here to present to you for your review, consideration, and to place on file the final report of the 2013 Charter Study Convention. Our committee of 25 convened last fall and worked on this important assignment for the next 8 weeks. We as a committee of the whole went through and digested the city charter to evaluate and make recommendations to your body, which we are presenting today. We considered a variety of proposals, some being administrative in nature, and some more comprehensive in terms of policies and procedures, such as recommending to formally adopt a biannual budgeting practice, much like the state of Nebraska, and to elect our city leaders, mayor, and city council in the same schedule cycle as the statewide elections. And don't worry, we made sure we took consideration that it actually adds 6 months or so to your time on the city council. We didn't want to make sure we didn't take any away from you.
So that's an extension of terms, just to be...
I don't want to get into that, Pete.
Are you sure you want to make that recommendation?
Yeah, maybe we'll reconsider that. Anyway, so today I submit to you our final report, but I also want to thank my 24 co-committee workers, Mr. Brown, Mr. Kratz, Mr. Endenbosch, and Mr. Hamer for their time and efforts and guidance. And also we want to thank you and the mayor for appointing those that you did and giving us the opportunity to work on this important committee. Thank you.
I will say, too, before I turn it over to Councilman Paul, is that we do appreciate all that you do and the work of the committee. That was a long process. You went through a lot of issues. A very time-consuming discussion was had, and I think thoroughly vetted a number of items that we appreciate. So I know Mr. Pauls will talk about the process going from here, but thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next step in the process, the Law Committee, which consists of Councilman Jerem and Councilwoman Melton and myself, will review the document, take a look at it, maybe offer some suggestion, but the total council will be making the decisions on what we will be doing. We received this document, I think, within the last couple of weeks, and I've been asked, well, why wasn't it on the spring ballot? Well, we would have needed to have received this in January because there are so many days ahead of the actual election that you need to have that for the election commissioner. We're going to be reviewing that within the next month or so, and we will see the direction that we will be going. The total city council will make that decision. Thank you.
Thank you. No further lights. There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Jerem?
Yes.
Milton?
Yes.
Pauls?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
It has been received and placed on file. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7D, the public hearing on agenda items 53 shall be held on third reading. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7C, the public hearing on agenda items 54 through 58 shall be held on the second reading.
Motion adjourned.
Roll call.
Jerem?
Yes.
Milton? Pauls?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
313. We stand adjourned.